Hello, this is Baal Kadmon, and I would like to thank you for watching and or listening to this podcast. It has been a long time since I released a podcast on this channel. The last time was, I believe, in March. I've been busy with another project. Some of you know about it. As some of you know, I'm a big fan of cryptocurrencies and have traded them for many years, and so I created a course on it. You can find it at www.blockchainimmersive.com, and I'll put the link in the description box below as well. But this podcast is not about that. The podcast is about the name of God, Elohim. Recently, someone emailed me and asked me to read a few verses in Hebrew for them, and when I have a free moment, I definitely like to oblige those. After the audio was delivered, we started casually talking about names of God in the Old Testament. I know, fun, right? And questions came up. What does Elohim actually mean? Doesn't it mean gods as in plural? I gritted my teeth and a pained look came over my face for a moment because I knew a gaping, cavernous theological and linguistic hole just opened up before me. I knew this was going to be a long explanation. As a result, this podcast is born. I hope you enjoy it. Oh, and you who asked me these questions, if you ever come to New York City, the first and maybe even the second round of drinks are on you. So to answer the question, doesn't Elohim mean gods, plural? The answer is yes and no. It is not so clear-cut. Let us get our hands dirty in the mire of Old Testament idiosyncrasies. Elohim is a very problematic word in the Old Testament, and that is because of the nature of the name and its spelling. We first see this name right at the beginning of the Old Testament in the first verse of Genesis, Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In Hebrew, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. As you see, the name for God here is Elohim. On the surface, this is the general understanding of this word as God, at least at first, which it is, but it's a bit more complicated than that. The Old Testament mentions Elohim at least 2,597 times, from what I can tell. But does it always mean God? No, it does not. But before we go there, let's back up and discuss briefly how the Hebrew language handles plural words. It will make sense in a moment. In Hebrew, to label something as plural depends on the noun, on whether it is masculine or feminine. If it is masculine, it ends in yud mem sofit or im, like Elohim. If it is feminine, it's ot, like Ashterot, plural of Astarte. Let's see some Hebrew examples. Boys, the word is yeladim, but also note that yeladim can also mean a group of kids regardless of gender. For girls, it's yeladot, so you see im for male, ot for female. Another example. The masculine word for day, like a day, is yom, but the plural for many days is yamim. These rules are true nearly all the time with a few exceptions. For example, the masculine word for table is shulchan, it's in the masculine form. However, in plural, it takes on the feminine form, shulchanot. Or the masculine singular of the word father, av, but father's plural is avot. These are examples of irregular plural forms. Here's another example. The word for sky is shamayim, which ends in a plural, but it's actually not a plural word. It just means sky, not skies, but one sky, shamayim. So otherwise, the rule of thumb is, if it ends in im, it is masculine. If it ends in ot, it is feminine, nearly all the time. So on the surface, this case should be closed. Elohim ends with a plural masculine ending, and therefore it is a plural word. Yeah, but if you keep reading, we see that Elohim uses masculine singular a lot during the acts of creation, but then will break momentarily to the plural. Notice when God is creating the world or everything, for example. When he says, God, and God said, right? You have that here. It says, Vayomer. Here we have another one. And God said, Vayomer. Now, Vayomer is the third person masculine singular. If this was more than one being or a group of beings speaking as quote-unquote Elohim, they would have used the term Vayamru, which is third person masculine plural. So from chapter 1, verse 1, all the way through verse 25, things are singular. Everything is said in singular masculine. It stays pretty consistent. Then something happens. In verse 26, it goes a little bit off the rails. It says, Vayomer, again, singular masculine, Elohim naaseh Adam betzalmenu kedmutenu. Now here is a little bit of a problem, because in English it says, and God said, let us make man in our image after our likeness. Betzalmenu kedmutenu. Those are indeed plural words, even in English. But then, the next verse, he goes back to the singular and states, and God created man in his own image. And it says here, Elohim ha'adam betzalmo, which means his image, singular. So indeed, it's now back to masculine singular. This is very confusing. Is God just really bad at grammar? Well, that's okay. I'm not that good at it either. No, but seriously, it's not that. When you go deeper into the Old Testament, we see that Elohim is not only used as a name for God, but also other gods in its proper plural form. There are hundreds of examples of Elohim being used to describe gods, plural. But let me just point out a few. If we look at Exodus chapter 20, verse 1, it says here, and God spoke all these words. V'yadaber Elohim. Okay, so here God is referring to himself, or it's referred to as God as Elohim. But look what he says in verse 2. I am the Lord thy God, who brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Look what he says in Hebrew. Elohim acherim, which means no other gods, or other gods. No other gods is lo yeh lecha Elohim acherim. So it's interesting that God is referred to here as Elohim, and God is referring to other gods as Elohim. It's very interesting. Now, if we go to chapter 22, verse 19, it says, he that sacrificeth unto the gods, save unto the Lord only, shall be utterly destroyed. Look what he said, what he calls unto the gods. La Elohim. So he's referring to these gods as Elohim. But then he refers to himself here as Yehovah or Yahweh. So it's very interesting. Now let's move a bit deeper into the Old Testament. Let's move to Judges chapter 10, verse 14. Go and cry unto the gods which ye have chosen. Let them save you in the time of your distress. And look what the word he uses here for unto the gods, ha Elohim. That's very, very interesting, right? Now, if we move forward into the book of Psalms, chapter 86, verse 8, it says, "And there is none like unto thee among the gods, O Lord, and there are no works like thine." Look what he uses for the term God, va Elohim, okay? So he's literally expressing these gods as Elohim. And here refers to himself, or they're referring to God as Adonai, which just means my Lord. So it's interesting how it moves back and forth. Now, on the surface, we should conclude that Elohim means gods, plural, and that's it. But no, it's actually not that easy. If we back up a bit and go to Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 35, it says something very interesting. It states here, "Unto thee it was shown that thou mightest know that the Lord, he is God. There is none else beside him." Look what it says. Ki Yehovah hu ha-Elohim. This is Yahweh. So it's saying Yahweh is the God or the gods. So ha-Elohim. So Yahweh is Elohim. It says it right here. And again, Yahweh, who, these are singular. These are in the singular. So when you couple that with the verses in Genesis in which God uses the plural and the singular together and then back to plural, leads me to believe that this isn't referring to multiple gods. This isn't referring to God and angelic beings, or as the Christians think that it's referring to the Trinity, God the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Together, they're Elohim. But what is happening here is the usage of something called the plural of excellence. It is a linguistic convention. It's not quite the royal we. Biblical Hebrew doesn't really have that in a direct way, but it does have the plural of excellence. The plural of excellence is a way to express prestige, power, and greatness. In essence, when you break it down, this use of plural of excellence leads me to believe that Elohim itself is not a name. It is never really used as a name in the Bible, but it's rather a signifier of a royal position, a prestigious position, a powerful and a great position. As we saw in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 35, it says, Yahweh is Elohim. So Yahweh is the proper name, and Elohim is the position or title. It's not a name. So Elohim has several usages and is definitely context dependent. When the God of the Old Testament says, I am your Elohim, he is referring to a position of status. When the Bible says, do not believe in other gods or Elohim, it is being used in the plural to refer to other gods. As you see, it is a complicated issue, but it makes sense in light of the evidence. Does this mean we can't use Elohim as a name in our rituals that contain it? No, of course not. Although it's technically not a proper name, it is still referring to the majesty of the underlying deity in this context. Technically, if you want to mix it up a bit, you could say that Horus is Elohim or Baal is Elohim. And they are within their respective systems. They would definitely be Elohim. So, there you have it. I hope that this was informative. So let me just give you a few quick updates. I'm going to release a podcast again very soon about the Whore of Babylon. Someone asked me about that, and I see posts from time to time about the Whore of Babylon and how it's being used as a personification, but actually in my book on the Antichrist, I show that it's actually not a personification, but actually a city, and I'll get into that in the podcast. I'm also working on a course on Jungian psychology. A lot of people, my goodness, have asked me about this, and it's really a beginner's course, maybe intermediate, to explain the concepts because they can get a little difficult. And I've read so many of Jung's work, and oh my goodness, can it be? It couldn't be more impenetrable. So I'm going to try to bring it down a bit, or make it more understandable. And then I'm going to be working on something related to Enochian, and I'm not going to tell you what that's about. That's something you don't want to miss. So anyway, that's it for me for tonight. I will speak to you soon.